Good morning, my name is Kainton, the Tech Pro, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do form validation in Angular. This is very important because if your form is not valid, users are actually going to be sending invalid data into your data store, and that leads to inconsistent data. And also, if you have a very valid form like this, or a very good form validation setup, it's going to make your application user-friendly. Users will be able to interact more and will be able to use your application more easily. So this is what we have here. For instance, we have first name is not valid. So if I enter my first name and tap to the next line, you can see now it's valid. If I take out this, you see that it's not valid. So I'm going to be telling you about this, how to do it very easily. I've created a step-by-step we are going to be following right now. So in case you miss out something, please go to this step-by-step. The link is in the description box somewhere here and this below this video. You can find link to this page. You can follow the procedure. This is the same procedure I'm going to be following. It's for beginners, it's for everyone. So it's very simple. So please subscribe to my channel. If you've not subscribed, hit on the subscribe button below this video, and also let me know if you have any challenges and I'm going to help you out. If you like this video, also let me know how good it's been for you. Like and share it if that's been okay for you. Before AngularJS came out, in fact, before all these frameworks, AngularJS, React.js, Vue.js, we already have HTML form validation. I call HTML the uncle or the big daddy of all these frameworks. HTML already have a way to validate. So basically, in your Angular application, you can choose to also use HTML validation by simply turning off Angular validation. So let me just show you. Let's start from the scratch. So let's build this form from the scratch. So let's go back here. I'm going to go back to the home page. Now let me just add one more button. So let's just create a new page, a blank page where we are going to be doing validation. So I'm going to create a blank page, and you already know to create a blank page, simply create a component. So I'm going to say ng generate. Oh, sorry. So I think you don't see this. So I'm going to kind of swap these displays. Just give me 1 second. Let me just correct this. All right, so good. So I'm going to move this to this side and this to this side. Okay. So I'm going to generate a new component right now. I'm going to say ng generate components. I'm going to call it contact. Okay. So this is a new page we are going to be working with. So we generated it. So if I go back to my app, you can see I have a new component here called contact. All right. You can see contact. So let me just add this contact to this place so that we can actually have a button to go to the contact. So I'm actually teaching you a whole lot of things in one video. So please subscribe and also let me know it's been okay for you. So let me go to this home page. So this home page is actually this home page, and go to the HTML and simply copy and paste. You know, programmers are lazy. We simply copy and paste. If you have something existing, simply copy and paste instead of redoing it again. So I'm going to say Control V. I'm going to say /contact, /contact. That's how to reach this place. I'm going to call this contact, okay? And finally, I'm going to drop down this div tag, and that is fine. So if I save everything at this point, it's going to appear as you can see here, but it's not linked, as you can see. It's not linked to anywhere. So you simply add the routing. If you go to app routing module, you simply also copy and paste. Also, remember, copy and paste is the work. It's something that makes it easy for programmers. So always learn to copy and paste. It makes life very easy. So change this one to contacts, and change this one to contact components, contacts, component. Perfect. All right, so if I save now, Command S to save, and I can now go to the contact component, and you can see nothing is in there. So let's go to the contact component and create a form. This form, we are going to be working with validation at this point, following the steps we have here. Okay, so if I go to the contact component, so let's go to the contact component. Let me close this. There is a contact component, right here to the HTML page, and I'm going to just take out this. I'm simply going to add a container to contain everything. So I'm going to say div class is equal to container. That is fine. So every other thing is going to be in between this form. So what I'm going to do now, you actually can copy a form. You could just hit HTML form from Bootstrap website, and that is going to be okay. So I'm going to copy this form. Sorry, let me just kind of reduce the font size. Okay, so this does not go. Okay. For some reason it's not allowing me to copy, so okay, let me just reduce this size. Okay, perfect. So at this point I can copy all this, and let's just paste it in between the form/form tag, in between the container tag here, actually the div tag. Now what I'm going to do now, just scroll up a bit. I'm going to take out some markups. Alright, so permit me to take out this for now. Take out this for now. Let me just cut this. Or let's do it this way. Let me just create this. Create field countries. Okay, so country is going to be string, or an array of string. That's what countries is, because we are talking about how to display a list of items in the UI or in a select list. Now, as programmer, I'm going to simply go copy and paste. So let me go to person component, and I have these countries here. I'm going to just copy it, and I'm going to go to the contact, no, not this contact component, and in it here, I'm going to paste it. So we have a list of countries now in the contact component. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to do something as well. The next thing I want to do is to go back to the contact component. Now let me just show you, or maybe we can just preview. So we have error here because we don't take out this div tag, and we don't have onSubmit function. So let me just create onSubmit method. So we have onSubmit. So let's say console.log f.value. Okay, so what am I doing right now? Again, just place your mouse and add an import statement. So when the submit button is clicked, okay, it's going to pass this form value onto the server, and we can now display using console.log to display the content of the form. And again, these options here helps you to display a list of items you already have on the select list. So here we have a list of items right here. It's going to be displayed on the select list. So I'm going to kind of close this one, maybe close this as well, and at this point we have this. Now I'm going to do something, because this is taken from the styles I have here. So I'm going to kind of take out this one. I'm going to come here, and yeah, so let me take out this model because I need to explain something to you. All right, so the basic form is like this. Okay, so I'm going to save everything. So we have a basic form without any validation like this, no validation at all. So if I enter anything, it doesn't validate it in any way. So if I click on submit, it submits, nothing happens. So let me shift this a bit. Again, I think okay, so I think I'm going to swap the display, because it's like you're not seeing part of the form at this point. So let me swap the display again so that everything becomes clearer. So because my video is blocking the whole, is blocking the screen. So I'm going to move. This is going to be here, and this is going to be, no, I got it wrong. So I'm going to take these out. Forgive me for wasting time. This is all this screen management or screen dynamics is not what I came here for, but sometimes you have to do it. All right, so let's keep it this way, okay? All right, so we have this basic HTML form, no validation. It's just a basic HTML form. Now in the instructions, we say we can use basic HTML validation. Now if I go back to this form, if I try to submit, it submits, nothing happens, as you can see. So if you want to use basic HTML validation, you can use. So if I come to the input, first name, you can say required, meaning that first name is required, okay? And I submit, nothing happens, but this form is invalid. it's invalid, but it's allowing submission. It's not telling us it's invalid because we are using Angular validation. So to use basic HTML validation, you simply say ng native validate. So with ng native validate, it's now going to use basic HTML validation. So if I click on submit button at this time, you can see the form is being validated using basic HTML validation, but that's not what we want to do. All right, so the first thing I would like us to do is let's follow the procedure here. For us to use validation, there are three things we need to add to the control. One, the control name, the name, the ng model, and the hash placeholder name as well, okay? The name helps you is a requirement for the ng model. For you to bind the control to the model at the back end, you need name and ng model. These are two things, you can't use one without the other. So if I'm using ng model here, ng model, for one-way binding, because this form is only for submission, then we need it to be this way: name and ng model. Now we also want to be able to know which control is having issues, all right? So in that case, you also need the placeholder name. I don't know if that's what this is called. Placeholder name, first name is equal to ng model. Now if you do something like this, it's going to be a problem. Now this is something I noted very carefully because it gave me so much problem at some point. ng model with lowercase and ng model with uppercase is big difference. It says a big difference, so it's going to be lowercase like this, ng model, and you see that it works fine. So you have to do the same thing for other controls that you want to use for Angular validation. So I'm going to come here and say, we already have name is equal to last name, so I'm going to say ng model, and the next one is going to be hash last name equal to ng model, and do the same thing for departments. I should have this on my clipboard. So I'm going to say ng model, and I'm going to say hash department equal to ng model, and the same thing goes for email. So let me just add it, ng model, and it's going to be hash email equal to ng. All right, so we've done this. Now, okay, I think we have one more, that's country. So I'm going to say ng model, and I'm going to say hash country equal to ng model. Okay, perfect. So we set up the form. This is a requirement for you to do validation in Angular. Angular, you need to have to set up these three things: the name, the model, and the placeholder name. I don't know, I think it's called a placeholder name or something. So let's just make sure nothing is broken. Nothing is broken so far. So the next instructions say write the submit function. Now there's a problem with Angular in terms of validation. Angular is going to allow you to submit this form whether it's valid or not. Make no mistake about this. Angular is going to allow you to submit this form even though it's invalid. So the way to track whether a form is invalid is to use the submit function to check if the form is invalid. And that is very easy. Angular allows you to check for validation at your server end very easily. So you can say f.valid or f is invalid and do what you want to do. So in this submit function, I'm going to simply rewrite it in this way. So if f is valid, display message. F is valid, F is invalid, display message, F is invalid. So I'm going to add a field message, is going to be string, and I want to see that message on the form here. So let me make it h3. So I want to see that message here, okay, whether the form is invalid or not. So let's go back to the form. I'm going to save everything. Sorry, I'm going to shift this up a little bit, okay. So I hope you can see. So at this point, so it says error. So where is the error coming from? h3/h3 failed to compile. It says, let's just check where the problem is coming from. So message. I think this should not be an error. Okay, so I know where the problem is coming from. So this message has to be not private. For it to be used in the HTML form, it should not be private. So I'm going to save everything, and it works. So at this point now, we need to add validation. Let's add maybe a required field validation for all of them, because if I click on submit, you can see that the form is valid because there is no validation so far. So I'm going to come here and add required for all of them. I'm going to simply copy and paste. As a programmer, we are a bit lazy sometimes. So let me just copy and paste across. All of them are required. So department is required. Email is required as well. So where you paste it is not important. So let me just paste it anywhere. All right, so at this point, the form now should be invalid, but that will only display when we try to submit this form. So if I click on submit, you can see that the form is invalid, but if I enter some things, and try to submit again, you can see the form is valid, as you can see. But now it doesn't tell us where the problem is coming from if the form is invalid. And that's the next thing we want to solve at this point. So there's something called valid and invalid styles. When the form is invalid, the input where that has that is not valid is actually attached with a style called ng-invalid. Okay, so if an input is invalid, we set the color to green and also add a little bit of border to it. And it's valid, we are going to add the color of the little border we are going to be adding to it to green. So I'm going to add this. So when you say input is invalid, input.ng-invalid means that the input is invalid. That is a style that AngularJS attaches to an invalid control. Okay. So if I save everything at this point and I go to this place, and you can see now it tells us everything is invalid, as you can see. But now we don't know where the problem is coming from. If we submit, it doesn't tell us where the problem is coming from, because actually there might be inputs that are invalid. It's not just required field. We can talk about this a little later, but now if I enter this, it's okay. But if we are submitting, it tells us, it marks it red, but it doesn't tell us no message. All right. So we need a message for each of these controls that helps us to know which form is invalid, which control particularly is invalid, and what message to the user you want the user to know. Maybe the invalid email, or maybe password should be uppercase, or maybe name should not be lowercase or true. So all these are called invalid message. Now to do that, you need a span. You need to add a span. We need this message to display under this particular control. So I'm going to copy this span here. I'm going to copy it and paste, and then I'm going to explain it to you as well. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So I'm going to copy this span and go to my contact, and I'm going to start from first name. So if I go to first name, Command V. So it says ng if first name is invalid, class is equal to error. Okay. So if I save everything at this point, you say, okay, you can see it says enter first name. But we also need an error class, because the error message should be red. So at this point, we have, of course, you have the procedure in my website. So we need .error and say color is red. Okay. So if I go back to the contact and I have this class, this ng if, I can simply so we have the error color is equal to red, Command S to save everything. Okay, so give me 1 second. So this class will have class of error. So class, sorry, not this class, class equal to error. Okay, so I'm going to save everything. So you can see that now we have a message displaying. But now we don't want this message to be always displaying. Meanwhile, let me just add this message to one more. Let me just add it here as well. So I'm going to add it here as well. and enter your last name and say ng if last name. Alright, we're able to get this first name, last name because we use this hash first name here. So assuming we don't use this, we will not be able to have this functionality we are adding now. Okay, it helps you to get the value of the control in your DOM on your HTML file. So save everything, but now we don't want it displaying right from the start. Okay, we want this error message to display only when the user have tried to enter something wrong, and that is very clear from my website. So to prevent display of the error message when the page reloads, add this condition to the ng if. So it should be ng if the first name is invalid and also the control has been touched. Okay, so that's the condition that we are going to display the error message. So I'm going to come here and say and first name dot touched. So this is the only time we want to display the error message. So I'm going to also add it here, first name dot touched. So at this point, if I go back to my UI and I save everything, you see it goes away. All right. Meanwhile, if I come here to touch it and go next, it displays an invalid message, as you can see. So if I refresh the page and the page loads for the first time, you don't want any message, but if he enters something wrong, let's say Kindson, or he maybe enters something wrong and now you see it's invalid. Now I think okay, so I have first name here, so both of them is actually displayed. So I'm going to change this one to touched. Okay, so I'm going to refresh the page again. So at this point there is perfectly well. Sorry, let me just take it out so you can see it's working fine. And the same thing works for country. So if everything is valid, let's take for instance, everything is valid, but you fail to select a country, and the form is also going to be, the form is invalid. Now I've not added this style to country, so but you can also do it by yourself. So you can just copy this and paste it in case of country right here, just below this select list here. So I'm going to paste it here. And in this case, say if ng country, and do the same thing, ng country, and save everything. When you save everything, so when everything is valid but you fail to select a country, it's also not valid. So if I submit, you can see form is invalid, and you can see. So why is it not showing the country? You must, okay, so I think I'm mixing things up. Okay, so I've not added a required, okay, I've added a required field for country. Country is ng model. So submit, country is invalid, so it should work. So I have to fix this. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so country is not touched, right? So if I touch it at this point and try to submit, so you can see it's working, so everything is fine. So I'm going to stop here, but there are a whole lot of things to learn. Now I want you to play around with this. For instance, we need to talk about setting the minimum and maximum. So in that case, simply say min and max. For instance, you can actually say min length and max length. Min length is 3 and max length, you want to specify the length of the character you want the user to enter. We also have email validation, so you don't want the user to enter name like email. You want to validate the email as well. Password validation, validation on reactive forms. This is a different kind of validation at this point. And uppercase, lowercase numbers, and the types of values, symbols. You don't want some symbols and some input boxes. So we are going to be talking about this in a different tutorial, but for now I want to stop here. I hope you understand this. I'm going to be making another lesson. Subscribe so that you get notified when I make the next lesson. I'm going to be stopping here. I remain Kindson the Tech Pro. If you have any challenges, please let me know in the comment box below, and always rest assured that I'm always there for you.